Clearing up compression part 2, files. Last time, I talked about audio compression and explained how the audio compression process reduces the dynamic range of the amplitude of a waveform, and that it has nothing at all to do with the type of file used to store the audio. In fact, audio compression can be accomplished in an analog system where no storage to a digital file comes into the picture. Now, let's take a look at a completely different concept that uses the same word to mean a very different thing: file compression. File compression refers to using a means to use as little storage space for a digital file as possible. We often use storage efficiencies to make life easier without even thinking about it. For example, consider this shopping list. I know, it's a pretty exciting list. If we say each character or space takes up a byte of storage, then the file to store this information would be 90 bytes long. I'm ignoring invisible stuff like line ends for this example. But what if we did like normal people do and wrote the list like this? Now the same information occupies only 30 bytes of storage. And if we know how the rule was applied to create the list, we can create the exact original list from it. Here's an animation that demonstrates the change in file size. This is a very simplified version of how compressed file formats like zip files work. In reality, the zip file format uses a dozen or so compression methods to reduce the amount of space required to store a digital file. These methods can be applied to any digital file or collection of files with greater or lesser effect depending on the type of file being compressed. This type of compression has nothing to do with audio waveforms. And now the confusing part. Prior to the digital revolution, audio engineers suffered no confusion over compression. It meant one thing. Similarly, it wasn't until digital recording brought audio manipulation to the masses that computer users ever heard of compression in any context other than file size. Then came MP3. MP3 is a file format that, like zip, reduces the amount of space required to store information. However, MP3 uses audio data only. It uses a complex set of mathematical calculations along with assumptions about how humans hear sound to throw away unnecessary parts of the recorded audio and reduce the amount of space required to store what remains. This approach is called lossy compression because it results in a file that doesn't provide all of the original data. It only provides a reasonably high-quality approximation. There are other audio formats that provide lossless compression, in which none of the audio data is compromised. These include FLAC, which stands for Free Lossless Audio Compression. And now we see why there's often confusion about the word compression. MP3 and FLAC are referred to as compressed audio file formats, but that has nothing at all to do with using audio compression to alter the waveform's amplitude. It refers only to the fact that these storage formats take up less storage space than uncompressed file formats such as WAV. Heck, FLAC even has the phrase audio compression right in its name. It's no wonder people get confused. Here are some scenarios that hopefully will help you keep it straight. First, I record some audio. I export that audio to a WAV file. I have a waveform that has not had audio compression applied, stored in an uncompressed file format. 2. I ran the compression effect in Audacity, then exported to WAV. Now I have a waveform that has had audio compression applied, stored in an uncompressed file format. 3. I exported an original waveform to FLAC, lossless compression. Now I have a waveform that has not had audio compression applied, stored in a compressed file format. There's no difference between the waveform in the file and the original one. 4. I ran the compression effect in Audacity, then exported to FLAC, lossless compression. Now I have a waveform that has had compression applied, stored in a compressed format. There's no difference between the waveform in the WAV file and the one in the FLAC file. 5. I exported the original waveform to MP3, which is lossy compression. Now I have a waveform that has not had audio compression applied, stored in a compressed file format. There are some differences between the MP3 waveform and the one in the WAV file, but they're not really detectable to the ear. 6. I ran the compression effect in Audacity, then exported to MP3, which is lossy compression. Now I have a waveform that has had audio compression applied, stored in a compressed file format. There are some differences between this MP3 waveform and the one in the WAV file, but they're not really detectable to the ear. Here's a table showing all of those cases. I really hope this helps clarify some of the confusion that has been wrought with the dreaded C word. Shoot me an email if you have any questions about it. Stuart.gofi@gmail.com. If it did help, tell somebody else about Stuart's Audacity tips.